Hello, my name is Luis Fernando Rayo and I am a pianist. I started playing the piano when I was 7 years old, and since then the piano has been my passion. Something that I found very attractive, very interesting in the piano playing is the technical aspect. I am fascinated by the effects that can be created in the piano, beautiful sound that result from a high level of control over the fingers, over the wrist, over the entire body. And of course fast, difficult passages. I always thought that this is interesting. Recently, because of a recital that I had to play, including Liszt B minor sonata and Bartók sonata, I had to learn to play octaves and to control my octave technique in a higher level. So I have been trying and I have been reading about different exercises and techniques that can be applied in order to improve the octaves technique. Some exercises that can be used in order to improve and in order to achieve a higher level of control over the octave technique are the following. The pianist can practice the regular scales but with octaves. Hands separate or hands together, and try to isolate the specific techniques. So the pianist can first just practice the wrist and try not to move the forearm so much. And later the pianist can use just the forearm, trying not to use the wrist so much. Something interesting is that some people don't realize that even the fingers, they play an important role when playing octaves. A good example is in the end of Liszt B minor sonata. So in this passage, in order to play legato, the fingers, they are also helping. As you can see, part of the movement comes from the fingers. So if you see, my wrist is not moving so much, my forearm is not moving so much. Another exercise that's helpful is playing just the wrist, like for example in Liszt Hungarian Rhapsody No. 6. You can isolate just the thumb . So by doing this, the pianist can improve the control over the thumb. In the beginning it's not very easy, but during time it becomes easier. And it's the same with the octaves. In the beginning it could be very hard to control very well and to have a high level of precision, but during time it becomes easier, and the pianist feels that the control is better. It's the level of control grows. The exercises, they can be seen as just tools in order to improve the technique, a way to divide to conquer, to isolate specific techniques in order to conquer an overall technique. It's important to mention that these are just exercises, because when playing octaves, the whole body is used. Not just the wrist or just the forearm or the fingers, but a combination of all, including impulses from the upper arm, and even the posture, the height of the bench, the distance of with the piano, everything counts in order to have a good octaves technique. It's important to never forget the relaxation. The body needs to be relaxed. It's important to avoid tension here in the arm. It's important to avoid tension in the wrist. The body needs to be very flexible. So basically the whole body will be used in a coordinated way, with harmony, in a harmonious way. The body can control the octaves, and the pianist then can play the octaves very well. Regarding the use of choreographies when playing some specific passages, octave passages, it's interesting to see how it makes easier when the pianist creates some choreography. Could be clockwise motion or counterclockwise motion, or other types of choreographies that the pianist can create. In this passage of Liszt B minor sonata is a good example how this helps. So in this passage I use sometimes counterclock motion. So in the first part is, I feel like, counterclockwise motion, and then there are these three notes that change the motion. So this is counterclock, and this starts the clockwise motion, and then counterclock, clockwise. So I divide this passage in two big choreographies. One is this, the other one is this. This, number one, number two, number one, number two. So when I go from black note to white note, and then white note and black notes, this kind of feels natural to do a counterclockwise motion. And then later I go from white note to black note, and then do the opposite. So counterclockwise motion, and then clockwise. So this kind of motion, they group many notes together in just one motion. Instead of thinking about each octave, I think and organize them in groups. So this helps my mind to plan the motion, and also helps my body to execute the motion. So when playing octaves, it's very helpful to think and to feel legato. Instead of playing each of the octaves, like thinking about each one, if the pianist feels the phrase, like first phrase, and then a second, there is a tendency to organize the phrase in groups of notes instead of thinking about each one isolatedly. So another thing that naturally happens is that the hand will get closer to the keys. See? When I think legato and I feel legato, my hand naturally tries to do the legato with the fingers, what brings my hand and my fingers closer to the key. So my fingers are very very close so I don't waste time, and my fingers, they get more precise. There is more precision in the phrase. Another thing that helps a lot is when I think legato, obviously it will sound legato, so it sounds better. If I think about this passage trying to play legato, the overall shape will have a better phrasing, a better sound, so this will also be beneficial and will help in improving the octave technique. So, as a conclusion, I would like to do a quick summary of the contents and the techniques that I explained previously. In order to achieve a higher level of control over octave passages, the pianist needs to achieve a higher level of control over his own body. This is technique. Technique is achieving a mastery over the body in order to control the instrument. So the pianist can isolate the wrists and isolate the forearm. When playing just with the wrist, try not to move the forearm so much. Also, a helpful technique is play just with the thumb, just with the pinky. So in this, but it's important to remember that this is just to get to achieve a better technique, a better level of control, because when playing an octave passage, all these movements, they work together. Impulses that comes from the upper arm, movements of the forearm, the wrist, and even some level of control that comes from the fingers. It's important to remember to do choreographies, to group the phrases into one big motion. Could be counterclockwise motion, could be clockwise motion. So these choreographies, they help in order to do a better phrasing and to have a more accurate playing. And the last is about articulation. It's very helpful to remember to play octaves when it's written by the composer, when it's possible to play legato, to think legato. So instead of thinking about each one, think legato and group the notes. By trying to play legato, the hand naturally stays close to the keys. So staying close to the key is a very important tool that helps to play more precisely. And also the octaves, they will sound better because instead of just playing them isolatedly, by grouping them into phrases and thinking about the legato articulation, the octaves, they will sound much better. They will sound like melody. So thank you very much for watching my video, and don't forget, keep practicing.